But what's also exciting about this is that it's actually translating to payouts for different creators. I think they are not only creating a great home and set of tools for distribution, for community management, for different podcasts, but they're also building in the ad network and making it another platform in which creators can get paid out.
Next play of the night, Game 5. I'm definitely going to see some crazy memes. I feel like there'll definitely be some creators born out of virality after tonight if we win. We as in the Knicks. So
yeah,
I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm doing well, man. No, it's been an amazing run. I think definitely got the whole city activated and really excited to see how this all plays out.
A very good word for how the city is right now.
Yeah, 1,000%, 1,000%. Awesome, man. Well, let's dive into it. I know we got some really exciting news roundup spanning some record-breaking numbers when it comes to how much Spotify is paying out to different podcasters, some big updates surrounding YouTube and how they're starting to bake creator partnerships directly into some of the ad buying platforms. And lastly, a really interesting announcement between LeBron James' legendary agent, Rich Paul, and Paul Rivera, who you might be familiar with, media entrepreneur known for a lot of things, one of which being the Shop, the amazing show featuring and partnered with LeBron James and Maverick Carter. So let's dive into it.
And to start, Spotify announces $100 million podcast payout. So Spotify revealed it paid podcasters more than $100 million just in Q1 of 2025 through its new partner program, underscoring an all-in bet on video podcasts. We're very familiar with that partner program. Sam and I are striving to get there ourselves. The same post says partner program earnings rose 23% in February and 29% in March, while active monthly video podcasts jumped 28%. First quarter earnings list 678 million monthly active users and 268 million subscribers. And Entrepreneur reports 170 million monthly podcast listeners on the platform. Sam, what do you think this says about podcasts and how companies are shifting their resources towards podcasts in general? And I say that because obviously Spotify started with music. They've been investing in podcasts over the last few years. This seems like it's working, but what do you think?
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, I think it was about 6 months ago when Spotify really started to roll out Spotify for Creators, a hub really enabling podcasters and creators to leverage Spotify as their go-to distribution hub, even being able to upload and distribute your podcast through Spotify to all other podcast players. They were an early mover when it came to bringing video podcasts on platform beyond just YouTube, which has become the biggest podcasting consumption platform. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think Spotify is really continuing to grow and build their position as the home for all things audio. Even when you look at the audio books repertoire that they're growing and the capabilities that they're building there, I think it's really exciting. But what's also exciting about this is that it's actually translating to payouts for different creators. I think they are not only creating a great home and set of tools for distribution, for community management, for different podcasts, but they're also building in the ad network and making it another platform in which creators can get paid out. And I think where the platforms that create the best incentives and payouts for creators is where creators tend to flock. I know YouTube has been great for that historically, but it seems like Spotify is continuing to grow their hat in the ring. So really exciting to see this continued growth. And I think this is probably only going to make them want to double down further when it comes to serving different podcasters and the consumers of those podcasts.
Yeah, well said. I got to say I was a hater at first when Spotify got into podcasting. I thought it made sense. I thought it makes sense now. I didn't know if it made sense at the time when Joe Rogan was paid, what was it, $100 million to stream his podcast exclusively on Spotify. Joe Budden also paid a good amount of money to stream exclusively on Spotify for a little bit. I didn't necessarily see the vision of Spotify becoming a podcast player this large in the podcast space, but I think a couple things have changed. One, Spotify took a good amount of time to put together a business within a business to support podcasts. And they did it at a time where podcasts actually at the time were fairly niche. I mean, these large podcasts had a lot of listeners, but I think listenership in general, consumption has changed in general. So instead of people only listening to music every day, it's getting closer to the 50-50, people listening to more podcasts than not. it's also a tactic on social media now to pretend like you're speaking into a podcast, so more people watch the video. I mean, I saw this one video. I won't get into it, but it was this woman saying very vulgar things she would do to her boyfriend, and everyone was trying to find the podcast it was on. When really she was recording a ghost podcast, is what they call it. When you're actually pretending to be on a podcast just so you go more viral. And the reason why she went viral was because she pretended she was recording on a podcast. So I think a lot of things had to happen right in order for podcasts to take advantage of this opportunity. I think it's a really good mixture of podcasts laying down the groundwork as well as like cultural shifts that are allowing for something like this to happen. And obviously creators getting paid more at the end of the day is gravy, you know?
Yeah, for sure. No, really excited to see what the roadmap has in store as they continue to develop and create different features for monetization, for distribution, continue to improve the experience for end users on Spotify to make podcasts more discoverable. I know that's been one leg up that YouTube has had for podcasters. It's been one of the best ways to actually like
Right.
grow your audience, and podcasts historically as a medium have been really tough to drive discoverability, because even if you think about something like Apple Podcasts, unless you're like digging through the charts and looking at what podcasts are ranking across different categories, chances are you're only finding podcasts if they're like shared on other platforms, on social, somebody sends you a link. Whereas YouTube, I mean, the biggest channels and the biggest podcasts are getting tons of traffic, awareness, and new listeners by way of suggested video view
Right.
traffic, search traffic. So I think that still is nascent within the Spotify experience as far as I can see. But I'm sure as they see some of these early wins and traction, they'll continue to tackle that problem of discoverability and audience development, as that is just another major driver that's going to bring more creators onto the platform beyond some of these
Right.
payout
Right.
headlines,
I
which are also
remember
great to
a few
see.
years ago when we were starting the music business podcast, the V1 of the Business of Talent podcast, we said it's a good time to get into podcasting because it's only going to get bigger and bigger. We're obviously right about that now. Now, how big is it? Do you think that if you are a content creator, now it's necessary to have a podcast at this point, or do you think we're not at that point yet? Because we're seeing politicians lean into it. Gavin Newsom has a podcast. Donald Trump leaned into podcasts in the 2024 election. How vital do you think it is for a creator to have a podcast as one of their offerings? Similar to right now, having a YouTube channel is vital for creators.
Yeah, I'd say there's no one size fits all approach. I think podcasts relative to short form social video enable you to create a much stronger connection with your audience and community, which I think is a big asset, because I think just because you're getting tens of millions or even billions of views on Instagram or TikTok doesn't necessarily mean you have like a ride or die community that you're able to activate or convert around other initiatives. Whereas podcasts tend to be stickier audiences. You tend to build a deeper sense of connection with your actual listeners. With that said, I think there's certain people that play very well to other formats. So at the end of the day, when it really comes to content strategy, it boils down to like, what are your
Right.
unique skills? What's the audience you're really seeking to serve? So I don't think there's any sort of blanket like you should have a podcast, but I will say a lot of the figures and continued growth of the sector is a promising and intriguing draw for creators or for entrepreneurs or for businesses to lean
Right.
into
Right.
podcast.
Dope.
Awesome. Next up, recently at YouTube, their new fronts where they unveiled some of their major updates. They launched a creator partnerships hub. This is now a hub where brands can more easily discover sponsored videos, search for creators, and uncover insights about the performance of both paid and organic linked videos. I think this is really interesting. Although YouTube definitely pays out lots of different creators using stuff like AdSense, where they're just automatically serving ads as pre-roll or in the middle or end of videos. Um, a lot of different creators creating videos on YouTube have been making a lot of their money by way of working with different talent agencies, influencer marketing companies that have been brokering deals off platform and enabling and then kind of incorporating it into their video, whether it's a host read or there's some sort of brand placement or integration. So I think now this is really exciting, because I mean, YouTube's reaching 2.53 billion monthly active users. And even if you just look at the ad revenue that was brought in Q1 2025, YouTube brought in over $8.9 billion in advertising revenue. I think this is really exciting from my perspective, on both the advertiser and creator perspective. Um, is probably a little bit worrying for some of these different talent management companies that historically did this process
Yeah,
very manually by way of nurturing different
yeah,
relationships with brand marketers. But I think the ease from a brand perspective of being able to go to this creator partnerships hub and identify potential creators to effectively start routing, doing ad buys, brokering placements, seamlessly uncovering insights surrounding performance of those different placements, I think is probably only going to open the floodgates even more when it comes to bringing more advertising dollars towards creators. And then I think for creators too, similarly, now it's like, you don't need a manager to help you get brand deals. Obviously, I think it's still in its infancy and it's probably going to take some time before it's broadly rolled out. But I think every creator is trying to get the brand bag. And right now, the brand bag is a little bit gatekeepery in
yeah,
order to
yeah.
get that brand bag. So now, in theory, if you begin building traction, being able to just flip the switch and start getting different offers surrounding more organic ad integrations, I think is going to be a big opportunity. What's exciting to you? What do
I
you
mean,
think
I
about this,
think when it's
Jordan?
easier for brands to connect with creators, you get better ads. And I'm actually not I'm not against advertisements. I have friends that don't like being tracked for ads. I'm totally fine with being tracked for ads. I actually joined a coding boot camp in 2020 because I got an ad for a coding boot camp that was a scholarship and I got a full scholarship. So since then I haven't been too anti-ad. So take that in mind with everything I'll say next. But I think it's better for consumers, better for brands, and better for creators when it's easier for them to connect. You said a little earlier that talent agencies, can get a little gatekeepy with who get these brand deals and who doesn't. I do think there's a second part of this which will still be relevant to talent agencies, which is what brand collaborations make sense. I mean, we were talking to Caleb Simpson for our first episode for the Business of Talent. I'm sure he gets a lot of people coming out to him, a lot of brands, a lot of businesses to do partnerships, but he has to vet all of them one by one to say which one of these makes sense for me and my brand. I still do think it makes sense for talent agencies to be able to leverage their insights and their data and their information from working with other creators to help creators grow within that space. So it may not be in the traditional sense that we've heard in the past, but it may be more strategical in nature. The other thing that's really interesting is this also allows new APIs to be integrated into influencer marketing platforms and to be integrated in YouTube's creator data for YouTube's creator data to be integrated into their systems. So clearly, this isn't just a move to replace talent agencies, but also to help them. I think it's a really smart move to actually unlock APIs and let people to be a little bit allow people to customize their experience a little more. So, you know, like I said, any way where advertisers can be more efficiently connected with creators is great. But I also think there's a part of this that are just allowing talent managers to leverage different skill sets to help their creators, as well as companies and software companies that are actually helping creators connect with those people as well. So super interesting. And of course, I'm sure there's AI all over this, and I'm interested to see what that integration looks like as well.
Yeah, 1000%. As we move on to our last, but definitely not least, big story of the week, Rich Paul, who many of you may be aware of, LeBron James, longtime collaborator, massive sports agent, just founded Clutch Sports, which has quickly become one of the big power players in the landscape of sports agencies. Has now backed a new sports media venture that's being led and founded by Paul Rivera. Paul Rivera is ex Nike, ex Beats by Dre, maybe familiar with his past media ventures in partnership with The Shop, the really awesome conversation series, often co-hosted by LeBron James. Maverick Carter is a partner in that venture. This new venture is called Homecoming. It's a new media company focused on video podcasts at the intersection of sports, business, and culture. Homecoming will offer flagship shows, original content, live events, merchandise, and plans to sign partnership deals with up-and-coming content creators. I think this is, I mean, really kind of driving home a lot the opportunity and momentum within the podcast market, but I think this validates that even further. Getting other major investors coming into the mix on this as well. Matthew Pritzker Company forms Family Sports and Entertainment. I think this is really fascinating. I think there's still opportunity in the space. That's my take here, right? Like, even though the market and category and channel as far as like a medium for media is still growing, but there still is a lot of opportunity for new upstarts to take over market share as the market continues to mature. I feel like Paul has a great entry point by way of his network. I feel like Rich Paul by way of the Clutch Sports landscape and athletes he represents, brand partners that he helps facilitate deals for across his active talent roster, are going to give this company a big leg up from a starting point. So I'm really excited to see what sort of shows come from this. But think this is only still just kind of reminds me that we're still in the early days and still in the beginning of what the kind of disruption is occurring when it comes to how traditional media is disrupting more legacy media as we continue to see upstarts like these take over market share across emerging platforms like podcasting.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I mean, why does this make sense to launch now? You know, the global sports streaming platform market was valued at nearly $34 billion last year, and it's projected to more than double to $75 billion by 2030, growing over 12% a year. One thing that's really interesting in this, though, is video podcasts. We haven't talked about video podcasts that much in this and how actually they're super beneficial for podcasts themselves. I mean, there's one reason why we're doing a video podcast. Which is why we think it makes it more engaging. Obviously, that was a gut instinct from us, but here's some data to back that up. Video podcasts are exploding. And last year alone, the format grew 70%, and nearly half of U.S. podcast listeners now prefer video. So it's really interesting not only to have a business that revolves around podcasts, which is what we've seen in the past, but actually revolves around video podcasts, the production of those video podcasts. You get a couple of things when you have video podcasts. You get engagement, obviously, when you're looking at the podcast itself. You can actually see the people's faces and you can see their interactions and so on and so forth. But secondly, you get clips. And this is a really, really big chance for him to have video podcasts where he can cut up clips and turn those into short form. And we know how important short form is. We're a broken record in terms of short form content. And it's very easy to share short form clips when they're videos and just audio. So he's clearly thinking not just podcasts are doing really well, but video podcasts are doing well and short form is doing well. Long form into short form is sort of, I guess, what they're thinking about here. And I think it's a great way to approach it. Athlete-driven content. We've talked on this show before how it's increasing over time and how creators, once they, well, I'm saying athletes as creators in this context, once they retire, are becoming, streamers. They're becoming long-form content producers. They're making podcasts. They're getting a different level of endorsement. So it's sort of going in that direction. If I had to choose somebody to run this type of business, I'd probably choose Rich Paul. You know what I mean? So that's my take on it.
Yeah, 1000%. Well, super excited to see how everything pans out. I think it's a really exciting time, and I think it's very excited to see. I think one other interesting thing that's exciting from my perspective too is I think a lot of talent, like if you look at Clutch Sports and their roster of different athletes that they represent and manage, I think a lot of the time too, post-playing career tends to be this massive question mark, right? Athletes spend their entire life up until their late 20s, early 30s, if they're fortunate to be able to continue playing through that age. But there's always that question around what's next. I think media is a solid path that enables them to leverage a lot of their insight and relationships within the industry in a way that can be very fruitful for them. So I think these guys have a ton of great relationships, access, and I think both from a media opportunity, it's great, as well as Rich Paul being able to have directly owned or a company that he's invested in that he can really use as a platform to propose and provide these opportunities for different athletes on his roster as they work towards signing new talent. So there you have it. I think this was a really big week. Excited, grateful for you all tuning in as always. Excited to keep diving into some of these big stories and the broader implications that they have within the broader entertainment and creator economy landscape. So thank you all for tuning in.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.